The St. Louis Rams host the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday in a game with significant playoff implications for both teams, and I know that's surprising. Here we are in Week 15 talking about the Vikings and the Rams as playoff contenders, but that's exactly what they are. Minnesota at 7-6 right now after a good win over Chicago last week. They're only a game behind the Bears and the Seattle Seahawks for the final wildcard spot in the NFC. And St. Louis at 6-1, they're only a game and a half behind. So really, this game amounts to an elimination game. Whoever loses this game between Minnesota and St. Louis will be out of it. The winner, though, is going to be in good shape with only 2 weeks left in the regular season. Remember, we talked about the Chicago Bears, one of those teams that were 8-5, only a game ahead of Minnesota. The Bears are going in the wrong direction right now, and they have a tough game this week against the Green Bay Packers. So the winner of this game still has an excellent shot to qualify for the postseason. Now, who will be able to come out on top on Sunday? The Rams are installed as a 3-point favorite right now on BETDAQ, 39 the total in this game. The Rams have been good at home this year. They've won 4 times outright as a home underdog. As we mentioned, they're not an underdog here, finally getting a little bit of respect from odds makers. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Minnesota is just so one-dimensional on offense right now. I mean, all they can do is run the football. Now, they run the football extremely well. Adrian Peterson has staked his claim once again as the best running back in the NFL. Already has 1,600 yards, only 506 yards away from breaking Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record. And Peterson talked about that, mentioned that specifically to Peter King a couple of days ago. So he's thinking about that. I expect him to have another big game this week. Even though the Rams have a tough defense. They're good both against the run and against the pass. But Adrian Peterson will run really because the Vikings have to run him to win because they cannot pass the ball right now. Christian Ponder, even though they won the game last week, another terrible game for Ponder. Only 91 passing yards and an interception. And St. Louis, even though we mentioned they're good both against the run and the pass, they are better against the pass. The Rams secondary, one of the best in the entire NFL. Cortland Finnegan and Janoris Jenkins, for my money, as good a cornerback tandem as there is in the league. And so I don't expect Christian Ponder to throw the ball 20 times in this game. Now, in fairness, Ponder's limited in terms of what he has to work with at the wide receiver position. The Vikings' best wide receiver, Percy Harvin, will miss the rest of the season. He's on IR. Still, Ponder is not giving him much. Right now, he's really nothing more than someone who can hand the ball off to Adrian Peterson, which is why I wonder how long it's going to be before we see a little bit of Joe Webb at quarterback for Minnesota. We saw last year that Joe Webb can play the position. Now, he is a run-first guy. Remember, he was drafted, and a lot of people thought that he might be a wide receiver in the NFL, but he showed last year he can throw the ball a little bit too, and even if he doesn't throw it that well, even if it's limited in terms of what he can give you passing the football, we know that Christian Ponder is not throwing the ball very well, so maybe what Joe Webb can give you with his legs is worth giving him a shot. It's better than what Christian Ponder is giving you right now. Even though Christian Ponder is mobile, he can run a little bit himself. He cannot run like Joe Webb. So we'll see. I mean, I know that the administration in Minnesota is committed to Christian Ponder. They just drafted him 12th overall last year, so they want to see it work for him. But the Vikings have a chance to make the playoffs. I mean, at some point, Christian Ponder still may be your quarterback of the future, but you've got to do what's best to win games right now. And is Christian Ponder what's best for the Minnesota Vikings right now? We're not seeing much evidence of that on the field on Sundays. So they will be trying to run Adrian Peterson again in this game. Worked last week against Chicago. As we said, the Vikings able to win that game despite only passing for 91 yards. And St. Louis is very limited on offense themselves. The Rams 29th in the NFL in points scored, and Minnesota's been playing well on the defensive side of the ball. That's why we see such a low total here, 39. And even though the total is so low, I do lean towards the under in this game. Mentioned Minnesota, how one-dimensional they are on offense. St. Louis struggling on offense in general, especially if Danny Amendola misses this game again. Amendola's missed a lot of this season and missed the last couple of games. He is questionable in this game. Now, we've seen him listed as questionable early in the week, the last 2 weeks, and once Friday and Saturday has come around, that questionable has turned to doubtful. And then last week, for instance, he was inactive for the game. Danny Amendola is huge to this Rams offense, and it might sound a little strange that a slot wide receiver could make a big difference in an offense, but you know what? In Danny Amendola's case, in the St. Louis Rams case, it does make a big difference. And if you've seen the Rams play this year with or without Amendola, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, he looks like the only guy Sam Bradford has any confidence in. You take Amendola out of there, and their wide receiving core awful thin in St. Louis. And so if Amendola plays, I like St. Louis's chances of moving the ball a lot more. We saw last week they were able to pull out a win without Amendola, but they only managed 15 points. If Amendola doesn't play, I still think I lean towards St. Louis in this game, but I like the under better. The under is my favorite bet here, under 39, if Danny Amendola does not play. If Amendola is playing, I think I might get on St. Louis here. Now, full disclosure, there's some positivity surrounding the St. Louis Rams here. I'm 4-0 backing the Rams this season. They've been overlooked all year. Jeff Fisher's done such a great job. This team, even though they've lost 6 games, they've been competitive in every single one of their games, with the exception of that blowout loss they suffered to the New England Patriots overseas in Wembley Stadium. You take that game out of it, and the St. Louis Rams have been a great team to back. They're a tough team. They play good defense. They don't score a whole lot of points, which is why they haven't blown a whole lot of teams out. That's why they've lost some close games. But I like their chances at home against the Minnesota Vikings, especially if Danny Amendola is playing. So, again, with Amendola, I like St. Louis -3. Without Amendola, I lean towards under 39 in this game.